What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Akil Stokes, who's very kindly taken the time to chat with myself and with you guys today and basically give us a bit of an insight into the journey of a trader and how you can potentially become a full-time trader if, of course, that is what you want to do. So first things first, Akil, thank you very much for taking the time and welcome to the channel.
Hey, thank you. Love being here. I appreciate you reaching out and really excited to talk with another like-minded individual and share my story.
Awesome stuff. Well, look, obviously, a lot of people will be familiar with you. You've got pretty decent presence on social media. But before we kind of dig into the details, maybe just in case there is anybody that's kind of coming across you for the first time, just give us a bit of an overcap of your kind of journey and what you're doing today and stuff like that.
Sure, no problem. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. If I go too long, just shut me down. But I really got into the markets by accident. I graduated college at a time where there weren't a lot of jobs available. And, you know, my dad did a good job of raising me, trying to just slowly teaching me about kind of not the financial markets, but just teaching me about finances in general. So starting off with stuff like, hey, savings account, here's how it worked. You know, you put your money in the bank and you get a little bit of interest, to money market, to certificates of deposit. And after I graduated, I had a handful of money saved up because I've worked hard my entire life and I'm pretty frugal. I don't spend much. And the next step is start investing, right? And it just so happens that my wife now, the girl I was dating back then, her grandfather figure wanted to come in and vet me. Things were getting pretty serious. So he wanted to come in and kind of, give me the rundown. Yes, the talk. He sat me down, and long story short, I later found out he was like this millionaire investor. And I basically ended up, he saw that I had kind of a good investment mind, a good business mind. I ended up sponging off of him and just sitting in his office like a fly on the wall learning. And eventually I got into investing with him, kind of being my mentor, and started in the stock market, had some pretty good luck. I was fortunate. I started back in 2007. So I got to see everything when it was kind of at the top, and then I got to see it all crash.
Quick lesson.
And then buy it all cheap. So I had a really good perspective on things. And the more I did it, the more I fell in love with it. And I eventually made the move to, I tried penny stocks for a little bit, eventually made the move to Forex trading, simply because I was told that bigger market, more opportunities, you can make more money with less money in a quicker amount of time, the whole get rich quick type of deal. Learned the hard way that it wasn't get rich quick. If anything, I got a lot poorer quicker. But by then I had the bug. I understood that, hey, this is something I wanted to do. I decided to get serious about it. It still took me a good amount of time to make that adjustment. But you fast forward, 15 years later, living my dream as a professional trader and a coach as well. So I made it.
Well, look, there's very few that can say that, right? We know it's a tough industry. We know the statistics out there. 90% of retail traders sort of fail, and I think that's pretty much across all markets, right? Stocks, FX, pretty much anything. Probably even less in crypto nowadays with the volatility that you have and stuff like that. Is it predominantly FX that you still focus on now? Do you deal with different asset classes such as stock still, or any kind of crypto?
So yeah, mainly FX, actively trade FX. I still have some investments in there as far as the stock market goes, but those are more longer term investments, plays that, and a few commodities as well. But those are kind of I look at that as a different business, more of a personal investment instead of kind of active trading. But as far as active trading, only the Forex market. I stay away from crypto. I just don't have the time and energy to get back into the stock market again. So I kind of keep my focus on what my focus is.
That makes sense. So you've almost kind of got like a side pot that's more longer term investments, and then your more active portfolio, obviously, that are you day trading? Would you class it as day trading or more swing trading?
I'm swing trading now. I did day trade. I actually started as a swing trader. And then when I got into coaching, I started day trading because I was running a live coaching session and whatnot. And then I've gotten, once 2020 came, what I did was I liquidated my day trading account because there were so many good longer term investment opportunities out there. And I kind of got back into mainly just focusing on swing trading.
Okay, nice. Makes sense. Well, look, let's kind of go back a little bit, right? So obviously we were talking a little bit there about your kind of journey as an overview. So you say it's about 15 years ago now, really, that you kind of really got stuck into it. What were you actually doing before that?
Well, I was trying my best. In hindsight, I wasn't trying the right way, but like many newer traders out there, I was vulturing the internet, YouTube videos, books, looking for that super secret strategy. And I would try stuff and I'd put money in, it would fail. And I'd try stuff again. I'd put money in and I would fail. And I just kept repeating that cycle over and over again, really spinning on a hamster wheel. Like I never really made any progress. And it goes back to, I had the wrong mindset. You know, I thought that there was this super secret strategy and I just had to find it. And once I found it, I would be successful. I didn't even think about the me part. I didn't think about kind of developing a strategy, back testing, looking at numbers and all that fun stuff. I didn't even know about trading psychology. And that ended up being kind of what was most damaging to my results. So I was basically just wasting and throwing money away, you know, day after day, month after month, for about a year and a half before I decided to get coaching. And even after getting coaching, I still continue to throw money away because I thought coaching was the secret strategy that I was looking for. So it took me a good bit. And during that time, I'd also quit my jobs. So I was kind of out there by myself. Well, I tell you what, I fully committed because, you know, I graduated college. I was working 3 jobs at the time and going to grad school. And again, I come from very humble beginnings. You know, I was making about $30,000 from the 3 jobs, which is more than I've ever seen in my life. And, you know, I'm a bachelor. I'm living with 3 roommates. I don't have any rent or anything like that. So like, I don't spend a lot.
I'm rich.
So yeah, I'm rich, right? There was never a need. There was never like an urgency where it's like, I have to make this trading thing work. Cause I would mess around and waste money. But like, okay, 2 weeks, that next check will come in. I'll just do it again. And it wasn't until things got serious with my wife, I started thinking about the future and I started doing some math and I'm like, wait a minute, man, 30,000.
That's not really
gonna, that's not going to cut it once I have a family and whatnot. And, you know, I talked to my dad and you know, this was again, during a time of the recession and whatnot. He's like, hey, if there's ever a time to kind of just go after a blind dream and go for it, do it now, because he says, son, if you fail, you're just gonna, you can easily go back. And like my jobs weren't career jobs. I was a janitor. I was working in the school district with troubled children, and I was coaching track and field. So they weren't like career jobs. He said, if you fail, you know what? You can just go back to doing what you're doing anyway. This is the perfect time. You're 20 something years old. Take a chance, you know, instead of waiting till you're like his age. I think secretly he had some things he wanted to do in his life that he never did, and he regretted not taking that chance. So I was happy to get his blessing.
It sounds like you had some good figures around you though. Like, I mean, like your dad's attitude there, obviously saying about, you know, your then girlfriend, now wife's sort of, you know, dad, etc. as well. It sounds like that, you know, you had the right type of individuals around you, because I do often find, especially nowadays, the majority of people, I think it's fair to say, are quite risk adverse. So it's that, you know, get a job, that safety thing. And, you know, and it's surprising to me that considering, you know, when we had COVID, right, and the amount of people that were getting laid off and stuff like this, and you think even that didn't really teach people that secure job, it's not that secure, but people still seem to have that. I guess it's more of a traditional mindset, right? So would you say that having those types of individuals around you and that kind of attitude to spur you on to go for it and to have a go at something, would you say that was a big plus for you?
Yeah, it was massive. And it's funny because, so my dad, even though he encouraged me to go for it, I don't think he actually believed that I would become successful. But, you know, that's a good father. I don't care if he believed it or not. He pushed me and told 100%. Me what I needed to do, because I wouldn't have done it. My wife had no idea what I was doing, but she was just supportive. So she was there when, and I wasn't the greatest person. So I remember like during that journey, you know, we'd supposed to go on dates or something like that. And I'd be stuck on the chart and be like, okay, just one more hour, 2 more hours. Before you know it, she fell asleep and I'm still on the chart. So like, you know, I neglected a lot of my social life to chase this dream. And she never got mad. She never kind of said, hey, you're choosing that over me. She was always supportive. And again, without that, because I had some pretty dark days, without that, I never would have made it. And again, even if with my dad, with his kind of, even if it's, again, deep down, if he didn't believe in me, even his ability to just say, hey, keep going, just go for it. During the very rough and depressing periods, that's needed, because I definitely wanted to quit so many times. Just having that little bit of a push kind of spurred me on. And this is coming from someone that's typically pretty highly motivated, self-motivated as well. So yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, no, I think it's a key thing. It's brilliant, obviously, that you had those types of people around you. Not everybody has that. Not everyone's necessarily a self-starter and stuff like that. So I think it definitely plays a massive role. But I want to kind of just quickly skip as well to something that you touched on earlier on, when you spoke about hopping around strategies, because this is something that I find a lot of people do. And it's not even necessarily a case of they've taken on board a particular strategy. Let's say, for example, they've traded it for 12 months, for example, right? And they may have made money over that period, but then they find they've lagged the market slightly, or they've seen this strategy over here make a bit more money, and they start suddenly jumping to that one and jumping to that one. Is that one something that you see quite a lot as well? With the coaching and stuff you do?
All the time. All the time. System hopping, not as much with the people I directly coach, because again, we ingraded them. Don't do do it. But even with them, you see people, we call it shiny thing syndrome, where it's like, the grass is greener on the other side. They're doing one thing and then, ooh, this looks good. And you're never going to get anywhere doing it. At some point you have to commit to something. And what I always tell traders is this, right? Start with one thing, right? The goal is to get the ball rolling, start making money. So if you can work on one thing, if you can master it, you test it, you do all that fun stuff, and you can trade it while you're trading it live and while it's making you money, that then opens up time for you to work on the other thing. So the way that I pieced my trading strategies together is I started with a single strategy, focused on that strategy. Once that strategy became profitable for me, I had more time to start working on other things, and slowly over years added different pieces to the puzzle. So a lot of people look at me and they're like, hey, Akil, you trade, 4, 5, 6 different ways. I can't do that. How do you manage everything at once? Well, that's over a 15-year period. It was piece by piece by piece by piece. So you don't have to do it all at once. The main thing is get the ball started, get that first strategy down while it's making you money, right? Printing money for you. Then you can start adding the next thing.
I love that. I think that's really solid advice, actually. You don't hear many people say that often, right? It becomes a case of a lot of people thinking, taking as much as I can, I can make more money quickly. But like you say, it's almost that thing, that old saying, right? Mastering one thing rather than being a jack of all trades and then being a master of none. Really refine down to that one thing, be really, really damn good at it. And then from there, you can build out over time. But until you've mastered that one thing, don't move on. I like that. That's real solid advice. I think that's brilliant. One of the things you also mentioned there as well, from the, going from hopping to strategies, was then really getting your mindset right. Obviously, we know that trading psychology, I suppose it's more spoken about nowadays than it would have been, say, 10 years ago, right? But what would you say for you was that kind of turning point that made you realize, oh, hang on a minute, this is a real important piece of the puzzle? What was it that changed that for you?
It was when I did a self audit. So I had this. I was losing. I was in that period where I was still losing money. And I thought I was doing everything my coaches were telling me. I was following I had a system, I had a strategy, I had tested it. It proved to be profitable. I did everything, but I was still losing money. I was trying to figure out why. And I actually did this at kind of the darkest time of my trading. I had basically given up on trading. I said I was going to quit. This thing doesn't work. I quit my job. So my nest egg of survival was running low. And it took me a little bit longer than I expected. But I had gotten to really this point in the year, the end of the year, and I decided to just run a self-review. I'm like, why are these things failing? And what I did was I did like an A/B split test where I looked at my trading results of what I actually did. And then I looked at kind of what my trading results were if I would have done everything 100% correct. And what I noticed in comparison was the consistency of mistakes I was making. And I was making a lot of mistakes, and I would track them. Apologize, I got my youngest and
that's all right.
His friend is in the background. I would track these mistakes, and I noticed that, hey, mistake. All of those self-inflicted wounds were taking away from my profitability. So what I decided for next year, and this is my mentors always told me, process over outcome. I decided that my number one goal was just to limit my mistakes. If I was making 20 mistakes a month, right? Let's say I made 20 mistakes in January. My only goal for February was to make 19. So make one less mistake, and ideally try not to make the same mistake twice. And what happened is I started doing this, started following this process, and I got my statement from my broker, I think like in April. And it was funny because I'm used to like the parentheses or the negatives, and it was like positive. And I remember sending an email back to my broker. I'm like, hey, man, I think you sent this to the wrong person. And they're like, Deal Stokes, account number, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, you're positive. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't lose money. And that was a kind of a light bulb moment where I realized, like, it's not the system, it's not the strategy. It was me. I was the one harming myself. And if I can start controlling what I was doing, I can actually make money doing this and man, once I realized that, it took off.
Yeah. See, that's really interesting that you say that, right? Because only about a week ago, I had like a one-to-one session with a student of mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we actually went through his sort of trades and his investments and stuff from this year. And we actually found that the majority of the time, if he'd say just placed a position and then just basically left it, he would have made a ton more money, right? But it's that human element, like you said, it's that psychological thing. You're getting involved emotionally or whatever it may be. Before you know it, you're not following your rules, and you can basically just completely screwed yourself, right? You haven't actually followed your process. So it's really good that you say that, actually, because that massively aligns. And I'm finding the more traders I speak to, especially those that kind of coach like we do, and obviously they're interacting with more traders, it's almost like a consistent thing, right? Most people are better off. The less human element there is in it, almost, it becomes better, right? I mean, do you still trade in quite a mechanical way nowadays, or are you kind of quite active in how you manage things? How have you kind of found that develop as you've kind of become more advanced with your skill set?
So rules-based trading, I'm a discretionary trader, so I'm using my eyes and whatnot to analyze the market, make predictions, and execute trades. But it is all rules-based, and I think that's a big misconception out there. When you hear someone as a discretionary trader, they think of it as like, hey, he's just going on the price chart and like making up stuff and doing whatever he wants. And it's like, no, like everything is specifically based. Like we call it the if-then syntax, where it's like we're coding, where it's like if this then that, if this then that. So there is a strict process that I follow. There are strict things that I need to see in the market. They're black or white. Even if I get something where it's like, oh man, that looks like a golden opportunity, this is a no-brainer. If it doesn't meet all of the rules, I got to sit out and I can't take it. So obviously there is going to be some subjectivity in there when you're analyzing stuff like different swings in the market, or maybe different types of momentum-based candles or whatnot. And, I do like that flexibility because it does allow you to interpret. And I do think trading is both an art and a science. So having the ability to do both is helpful. But I think even if you want to be a discretionary trader, it allows you some freedom, but it doesn't allow you the freedom to do whatever you want. You still have to work within guidelines. And as a newer trader, those guidelines should be very strict. As you get more advanced, you develop intuition, but you still can't act off intuition. You have to look at that intuition, determine why you're getting that intuition, turn that intuition into rules, and then you can add those rules to your strategy, which opens up kind of the ability to be more flexible in the markets while still within those rules parameters.
Yeah. How do you find it then when you obviously you do a lot of coaching, right? So when you're bringing on either slightly newer guys or even more advanced guys, and you're trying to get them, because let's be honest, as humans, we almost kind of, it's just DNA, right? We just react emotionally and depending on what's going on around us, and it's just kind of just natural almost, right? So how do you find it? Have you got any particular tricks or anything like that you tend to find work best in trying to help people get more to that rules-based mindset?
Yeah, I'll give you two. I'll give you something I use, and I'll give you a funny story I heard from a trader I worked with.
Awesome.
I try to stay away from the markets as much as I can. So like one thing I still don't do to this day, right? I will not actively watch a position. Now, obviously, if I need to manage it, if I need to come back and check to do anything to it, I'll watch it that way. But if I just take a trade and like there's nothing I can do for the next 4 hours, like I'm not going to sit there because it's going to drive me crazy watching it go up, down. It's kind of like just teasing me to do stuff. It's like being a happily married man and going to a place like a bar with all singles. Like, just don't put yourself in that situation. The longer you stay there, you're more likely to get into trouble. Not me, of course, but speaking about others,
generally other people. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I try to exit. I try to do other stuff to kind of clear my mind psychologically. So former athlete. I still coach track and field to this day. So, I get out, I work out, I have other hobbies, other habits, things that takes my mind off that urge and that temptation to do something I'm not supposed to do in the market. Now, for me, it's easy. I've been doing this for a very long time. So it's a little bit easy to disconnect from the emotions. And I say disconnect because a lot of people assume that us as coaches, we don't have emotions. We do. We just learn not to react off of them. And there's a difference. I still feel greed. I still feel pain. I still get excited when a trade is moving in my direction. I still feel kind of that coldness in your heart where something's crashing down toward your stop loss. I get those feelings. Don't get me wrong. I just don't act on them. I have that disconnect where I can keep my hands away from the keyboard and I don't act on them. Now, as a newer trader, I worked with a guy who did this. He was having trouble kind of making that disconnection. So he made a deal with his wife where every time we were working on process over outcome, every time he made a trading mistake, he had to buy her a gift.
And that could get expensive.
Yeah, his wife was over his shoulder every day, and he learned very quickly that it was more expensive to make these mistakes and buying his wife gifts than it was to just take the losing trade or take the less profit or whatever it was. So he switched it around very quickly, just because of that little method. So that could be an expensive one. So I don't necessarily recommend it, but you got to do what you got to do, and it worked for him.
So maybe then getting married is a good trader's tip, right? And then you've got that partner there to be looking over your shoulder to make that deal with. If you're a single guy or girl trading, it's going to be harder.
Yeah. There you go.
Awesome. And then in terms of, when you see those traders as they start to progress more, I think a big thing for people as they become more consistent is, at what point could I potentially become full-time trader? Now, I know there's obviously variables that come into it depending on somebody's lifestyle and expenses and stuff like that. But do you have a general tip, if you will, for people when they're looking to go full-time? Make sure you've, consistent for a certain amount of time, or is there anything that you kind of do to guide people down that path?
Yeah, well, financially, for the first part, like you mentioned, you got to make sure you're in a financial situation where you know your numbers. So you got to know your lifestyle, what your lifestyle costs, how much you can put in your account, how much you produce, how much you would need to take out in order to pay for your life or replace your current income. And there are different ways to do that. If you're going full time, just trading, it's going to be one thing. Obviously, you can use trading as a way to supplement your income. I worked with a guy who slowly phased himself out of his job, meaning he was working a normal kind of 40-hour week. And stage one is he cut it from 40 to 30, then he cut it from 30 to 15. And then I think like over a 3-year period, he ended up kind of going, fully quitting that job and focusing fully on trading. So it happens over time. So you got to know your numbers, bigger picture, and that's going to be unique to an individual situation. More so on kind of the readiness, which I think was the kind of the main question is, you want to be, I always gauge myself off of an annual basis. So I didn't start calling myself a consistently profitable trader until after I did it for a full year. And to be honest with you, even after a full year, I didn't really trust it. There's this fear in me, and I think this is the fear that keeps me going. There's this fear in me because I've seen it before, that things can go south any minute. I remember speaking to a trader. We had a mastermind group, and she was successful for, I think, 5 years. She had grew her account from like $5,000, like $500,000, something ridiculous. And then she lost it all within a year. And like once she lost it, the wheels fell off. She couldn't figure out what it was. And just
unraveled.
Yeah. And I remember as a younger trader hearing this story, and I'm like, what? And that fear is in the back of my head. Like, this can happen at any moment. So, whether it's real or not, whether I just tell myself that to kind of keep myself motivated to never slack, you do want to make sure you got to understand that you can get lucky in a day, you can get lucky in a week, you can get lucky in a month, you get lucky for a quarter. Once you start going off more than 3 months to a year, then it's probably likely it's more skill than just pure luck. So I would always, go through the process of, demo trading, paper trading, and then live trading. And once you're live trading, I always tell people to treat yourself like a prop firm. So don't just invest kind of 100% of your allotted capital right away. Maybe invest like 25% for the first three months. And then if you do well for 3 months, give yourself another 25%. Now you're trading 50%. You do good for another 3 months after that, 75%. And you slowly work your way performance-based up to that full allotment, because you're more likely to make more mistakes when you're newer. You don't want to have, it's good to have less money at risk when you're more likely to make those mistakes.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's awesome. I think there's some great advice in there. You actually reminded me of something I wanted to kind of pick your brain on, because you mentioned about treat yourself like a prop firm. And it's actually something I wanted to ask you about, because of course, the prop companies, we see more and more of them around nowadays. Yep. And there's kind of pros and cons to them. Obviously, there's the obvious thing of it can give you access to more capital a bit quicker, sorry. Yep. There's then some people argue the negative of it, in that some of the sort of checkpoints that they set, right? So certain amount of money to be made, certain amount of trades in a month, all this kind of stuff. They say it's essentially firstly making it very difficult, but also encouraging bad habits in terms of you have to have made a certain amount of trades and things like that. What are your kind of thoughts on that, as it's become more and more of a thing in our industry now, the prop trading companies? Do you think they're a good thing, a bad thing? Do you encourage them? Do you not? What do you think?
Well, I think everything you said is true. I think ultimately they're good. You know, I wish I knew about prop firms and these online prop firms when I first started trading. What I did was I went old school, door to door, pitching people, asking to manage money. And man, the amount of, it was depressing. The amount of no's I heard of no, no, no. Well, can I have some referrals and cold calling? It was, and that's out of my nature. I'm not a very like social outgoing person. And that was horrible. Now, it eventually worked out because I got that one yes, which made a massive difference, which allowed me to get into money management. But if I would have knew about the prop firm route, I would have taken that right away. I think ultimately it is a good thing because it allows traders access to money. And if you're skilled at trading, that's ultimately what you want, access to money. Now, the goals, the rules, the regulations, do I think they're tougher than what the expectation should be for your normal retail trader? Yes, and I think you have to do your research on making sure that you're signing up with a prop firm that has somewhat realistic expectations. And, you know, in working with many traders that have gone on to pass these challenges, there's a lot of adaptation that needs to happen. You have to be willing to say like, hey, this is my trading style, this is my trading strategy, but because I have to take this many trades, or I can only take that many trades, or I can't risk this much, or I have to risk that much, or I can't trade on weekends, or I can't hold overnight, you have to be a truly skilled trader so that you can actually make the adjustments to fit your strategy to work within their guidelines. So do I think it encourages bad habits? Yes and no. I think for someone that rushes into it, and unfortunately, I do see people that's like, oh, Keel, I just started trading last week. I'm ready to do this prop firm challenge. Right? I think, you know, is it going to develop bad habits with them? Yes, but honestly, they probably got bad habits already, right? So I don't think it's necessarily damaging them. Like if you're learning for trading for a week and going to try to trade for a prop firm, like, you know, no offense, like you're an idiot. Like, what are you thinking? That's an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah.
I think for a trader that is ready to trade for a prop firm, it's not going to develop bad habits because even if they have to do a certain thing, they know that they're only adjusting it for this specific purpose. So it's like, you know, like a coach going into a very specific match or a very specific game, and maybe they've got to do a game plan that's different than what they usually do, but it's needed to win that specific match. And after they win that specific match, maybe they can go back to their regular way. So ultimately, I think it is a big plus. You know, I am all for traders developing a skill and having access to money because honestly, most of us, you know, 99% of us don't have enough capital to just, you know, kind of quit our jobs and trade full time. So this is an opportunity to take that skill, turn it into a business, and ultimately accelerate your way to leaving your day to day and making trading a full time thing.
No, I would agree with that. And I think that's a good way of looking at it, right? Yes, overall, they're obviously good, but it's not necessarily for everyone. And I think that's what people have to understand, right? They need to work out if it's right for them. As you said, that guy that's just started trading last week, probably not a best idea to go and spend a few $100s on a challenge account, right? Even if he fluked passing it, it's only going to end one way down the line, right? So I think that's a great way of looking at it. I mean, look, I am obviously conscious of your time here, and I don't want to kind of take up too much of it. I mean, what I will do for everybody underneath this video, I'm going to chuck your social media links as well. I highly recommend everybody checks you out on the social platforms just to keep up to date with you. Basically, you post some fantastic content, especially on Twitter and things like that. For anybody though that does want to take things a little bit further with you, Keel, if anybody wants to kind of get more involved with you in your community and, you know, your teachings and stuff like that, where's the best place for them to find you, and where's the best way for them to go about that?
Sure. Yeah. You can we have a website, www.tier1trading.com. It's a trading educational program. It's a great community of traders. I think one of the things that we do different than a lot of people is it's not just training courses, but it's a lot of supportive resources. So it's training lessons, it's live sessions, whether it's a live trading room where you can practically apply what you're learning in the market to the actual charts, private Q&A sessions where we're coming in, we're digging into concepts, we're experimenting with ideas, and probably most importantly, accountability sessions where you got to come in and have one-on-one conversations and kind of share your trading journey, where you're at, what do you want to achieve, and we kind of get you in a consistent habit of doing that. That way you hold yourself accountable to staying on the right track. So our community is everything. I think we're great coaches, but honestly, you know, there's a lot of people that are really great coaches out there. I think the best thing, and you mentioned this earlier, you need support if you want to be a consistently profitable trader. 100%. And you got to find the support system that works right for you, whether it's a course, whether it's a mentor, or whether it's family. Support is everything. So you got to find it if you're serious about becoming a successful trader.
100%. Well, look, Akil, thank you again for that. I'm going to chuck the links for everybody underneath this video. So anybody wants to check that out, please do feel free to do so. And of course, if you need to as well, you can reach out directly to Akil. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer you via Twitter or anything like that for any questions you've got. Outside of that, Akil, is there anything you want to leave with the viewers before we sign off?
No, I just love the chat. Again, it's very rare that we get to chat with traders that have the right mindset and focus on the right things. I've had a few podcasts before where it's like, so what's the strategy? What's the super secret and stuff like that? And it's just like, why are we doing this? So I really appreciate you having me here. I love talking with like-minded individuals and people that are really trying to help other traders become successful, because like you mentioned, even though it's getting better than it was years ago, there's still a lot of bad stuff out there. So the bigger dent we can put into it and project the right message, the more traders we can help, and the more traders we can ultimately see move on to become full-time traders.
100%. Well, look, maybe at some point in 2023, we'll catch up and we'll discuss markets and what's been going on and stuff like that. Outside of that, guys, if you can obviously make sure you like the video, give it a share as well with anybody you feel would benefit. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. It really does help the channel out, guys. All the support you can give. Outside of that, Akil, thanks again once more. And guys, we will catch up with you very soon. See you later.